How do you handle giving all those host gifts during this holiday season? We'll give you the secret today on Keeping You Organized. Well, joining us today on Keeping You Organized is Lorie Marrero from the Clutter Diet. Sounds like something we need to actually go on. Lorie, welcome today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, great. And tell the people where you are coming from live via Skype.
I am coming to you from Austin, Texas, live music capital of the world.
Woohoo! Well, great. Yeah. Well, we got a lot to talk about today. I want to find a little bit about your background. I also want to talk a little bit, maybe some holiday planning tips. In fact, I even heard, do you keep bees as well? I mean, you got all kinds of things going on, don't you?
Oh, you have totally done your homework. Yeah, I do. I'm a beekeeper. I've done that for 2 or 3 years now. I have 2 hives, yes.
Oh, wow. Great. Well, hopefully we'll have time to get into that. You know, we only have a short amount of time, but how long have you been professionally organizing, and kind of give us your genesis into the business?
Well, I started 13 years ago, and I did that because I had moved 11 times in 10 years, and my kids were going to school, and I thought, you know, this is a business I could start. I'm very good at setting up a household and organizing people, so I just started doing it, and before I knew it, I kind of outgrew the business I had. I had to hire employees, and we expanded to San Antonio, and so we had a team of people. We were going in and organizing people's closets and home offices and businesses, sophisticated filing systems, and all kinds of things.
So the Clutter Diet actually is a team of organizers, and how many people do you have on your team?
Well, that was when I had a company called Living Order, and we had at one time up to 6 people on our team. And then what happened was a little shift. I decided in 2006 that there was some way, somehow, that I could take what I do and what I know and help anybody from anywhere online. So that's when I created the Clutter Diet, and my former employees now own Living Order, and they operate that in both cities.
Okay.
And we do all this consulting online. We've helped thousands of people in 18 countries.
Wow. So how does the online thing work? I mean, is it possible? I mean, I would imagine it's via like Skype or something like that. How do you do that process, and is it effective?
Absolutely, it's effective. Actually, we just now introduced phone and Skype consulting, but all this time since 2006, we've been doing this via our member message boards. So our members, they pay a fee every month that's an amount that's about the price of a pizza. It's really affordable for anybody. And they go into our message boards, and they just type up what their issues are. They just let us know. They upload photos, show us what's going on, and our team answers all of their questions, unlimited, 7 days a week. So we hold their hand as much as they want us to and help them get their projects done.
Well, that's really great. So they're getting all the services of a professional organizer for a very low fee, and like you say, it's unlimited. That's actually pretty good. So I'm sure you have a lot of people doing it. It's kind of a big group, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely there is. And we've had so many great success stories. It's really exciting when I get to read some of the success stories that are written in for us. And man, people are so inspirational. There are some people in our membership that have been around for years and years, and they just are persistent. And that's just one of the keys to staying organized, is you have to make it a habit. You have to consistently keep working on it, and they have. So it's great.
Oh, that is great. Now, you also, I think it was back in 2009, wrote a book called The Clutter Diet. And what's the essence of that book?
Well, you know, we have so much fun with the metaphor of weight loss because there are a lot of parallels. I found that when I had my practice in person with the clients in Austin and San Antonio, we were constantly saying to people, you know, getting organized is a lot like losing weight. And there's so many ways that that's true. For example, crash organizing doesn't work any better than crash dieting does. You know, unless you maintain the space and change the habits that got you there, you're going to end up right where you started. So we were always saying this stuff, and so I decided, yeah, that's a really fun thing to play with. So that's why I started the Clutter Diet website, and then I really just went further with that in the book. So the book has sections: prevention, reduction, and maintenance, and that's just like weight loss, you know?
Right. Well, now in weight loss, it seems like every diet has that, you know, drink tons of water, right? That's kind of in every, what's maybe the one kind of universal thing that if you could only do one thing, or at least the one thing to start with, what would that be?
You know what? I'm going to give you an answer that's probably not intuitive. It's not something about your closet, and it's not some little product answer. It's really accountability. That is the secret. If somebody wants to be accountable to a friend or a neighbor or even a stranger, like on our message boards, some people will choose accountability partners that way, someone they've never met. That is going to give them a lot more momentum toward their goals. And when you have to answer back to somebody else, you're probably going to get it done a lot more than if you just leave it to your own devices. So really, that's the secret. I mean, when people want to accomplish all these projects, having to report back to us or someone else is the way they get it done.
So do you encourage them on the boards to kind of buddy up, or say check in every week or 2 weeks or whatever the kind of period is? Is that part of the program at all, or just kind of a recommendation?
Yeah, it's definitely part of the program. We talk about it all the time. If you want to call it a motivation partner, some people like that a little better than accountability partner. It sounds a little less scary. But it's just like when you're working out and losing weight. When you have a partner to work out with, you're much more likely to roll out of bed at 6 in the morning and actually go out and run if that person's waiting for you to meet you. So same concept, and we definitely encourage that heavily.
Right. Now, what are some of the most common, since you're talking with thousands of people, obviously, what are some of the common areas of the house that seem to be the most disorganized, and what are some of the ways to kind of like jump into those areas right away? You know, if you're going to kind of do the SWAT team and maybe attack one of the most common areas, what would you what comes to mind, I guess?
Well, there are 3 areas that I think of: closets, home offices, and the kitchen. Okay. So I don't know which one you want to talk about first.
Well, let's start with closets. And didn't you also invent some closet stuff as well? So I mean, there's probably a good tie in there, I'd imagine.
Sure, thanks. I actually didn't invent this product. I acquired it from another company, but it is the Simple Division garment organizers, and they're little plastic dividers that allow you to create sections of clothing in your closet and label them, just like in the store when it says size 6 or size 8. It's those same kind of little plastic pieces, but for home use. But yeah, thanks for asking. So we use those all the time. That's a great way to stay organized after you're finished. So you've got the whole thing sorted out, and in order to maintain it, you've got those dividers to show you where to put things back. So it's kind of like filing your clothes.
So do you kind of like recommend pulling everything out of the closet and just, putting it in piles and then adding back little by little, or what's kind of the tactic you use for going after a closet?
Yeah, if I'm working with a client in person, we do pull everything out because it's just easier to handle it all and make decisions and make piles. But if you're doing it by yourself and you don't have as much time available, like a big chunk of time, you may want to just take a section and just go through each section. One of the best tips, and many organizers give this tip, I will say, it's not my tip, but one of the best things to do is after you're finished, to turn all of the hangers facing backwards so that the hook faces you instead of facing away on the rod. And then as you wear those clothes, you take the hanger down and you replace the item the regular way. So after about 3 months or 6 months and even a year, you'll start to see there are these clothes still hanging there backwards.
Wow.
Know that you've never worn those clothes the entire time. So that is your cue to donate. And I definitely want to give a plug for my nonprofit partner, Goodwill. So we would love for you to take those clothes to Goodwill.
Yeah, let's talk about Goodwill, because you do a lot of it. You're quite involved with the Goodwill. Give us a thumbnail sketch of how people who are getting organized can get their task maybe achieved and also help the Goodwill. I mean, obviously donating your clothes, right? But I'm sure since you work with them, there's some other ideas you have as well.
Well, absolutely. Donating clothes or any household items. I think one of the things I'd love to get across to people that are watching is that Goodwill is a place for people to go if they don't have a job, if they're looking for work, if they have obstacles or challenges in finding work. And that does not mean that Goodwill places people only in the jobs in their retail store. So the retail store is the only, the most visible part of what people see with Goodwill, but there's this whole unseen force of people helping, caseworkers helping people find jobs. So that's what I love telling people about, so that when they're donating those clothes, those translate in equivalency to jobs in their own hometown. So yeah, definitely do your organizing projects and all that. And when you're ready to donate, that's what's going to happen to those donated clothes and household items.
Now, what got you hooked up with Goodwill, and how long have you been working with them?
I've been with Goodwill about 3 years, and I was looking for a nonprofit partner because I felt like, I have a voice, I have a platform and an audience, and I really want to help somebody with that voice, and I want to figure out what is the best fit for what I do and what I know. And it was just a natural aha moment, like, oh gosh, Goodwill, of course, So we started talking to each other, and it was a match made in heaven. We have really enjoyed working together.
Oh, that's great. Well, listen, we're going to take a quick little break here, and when we come back, we got to talk some maybe holiday organizing tips, maybe talk some stories from some of the clients you've worked with in the past, or those that are on your group or whatever you call it, your membership area. So we'll do that with Lorie Marrero of the Clutter Diet on Keeping You Organized. We'll be right back. Now you see it? Now you don't. Now you see it again. Smead erasable folders have a special erasable surface that makes it easy to reuse and revise the labels on your folders, saving you time and money. All you need is a permanent marker, standard white eraser, and the Smead erasable product of your choice. Use Erasable Super Tab and get 90% more label area on your file folder that you can reuse again and again. Our erasable Fast Tab hanging folders have built-in reinforced tabs attached to the folder for hassle-free filing. Or get the erasable hanging folder tabs or erasable Super Tab labels to use with your existing hanging folders and file folders. The Erasable Family, an eco-friendly reusable innovation from Smead, keeping you organized. We are back now on Keeping You Organized. We have Lorie Marrero from the Clutter Diet and theclutterdiet.com, which is, what do you call that? A membership site or a community or a group? What's the terminology that you use for that?
Usually I call it a membership site, but we definitely have a strong community, so I love the word community.
Right, and so people pay a monthly fee. They're able to post their organizing challenges and questions on your community board, and then is it you or several organizers that are answering those? I suppose actually other people help other people as well in a situation like that.
You're right, and that's why I do love the word community, because it isn't just our experts that are helping in the message boards. It's all the other members helping each other, so it's a really beautiful thing to see.
Well, let's talk about maybe one of those wild success stories from that board, maybe an interesting challenge that someone posted that you or some of the community were able to solve. Any interesting ones? I mean, there's always fun ones,
Oh, definitely. Well, I will tell you the most inspiring one for me.
Okay.
There's a member, her name is Blonde in Charge, that's her username, and we call her BIC for short. And she's been around a long time in our membership, and she used to be married to a hoarder. And it was, as you can imagine, very frustrating for her because she wasn't a hoarder herself, and it was very difficult and challenging for her to live in that environment. And eventually that was, a living situation that ended for her. I can't remember if she got a divorce or what happened there, but she had to then clean up the house after having him live there. So this was very hard for her. It took her a very long time. And again, that consistency, persistence, she has inspired all of us, and she's got before and after pictures that would blow your mind. But she did it. She got it all done, and it was from coming in and checking with us almost every day, actually, until she finished.
Well, let's get a little more specific on it. So did she have like several rooms or big house, and what did she actually do to get rid of the stuff? Did she bring a dumpster in, or I mean, how do you deal with all that stuff?
Yeah, I don't think she had to bring a dumpster in, but she just took it room by room. So she had, I would imagine, an average size home. She never mentioned that it was any bigger than anyone else's, but she just went room by room and, organized, in a certain pattern in the room, and just kind of went through and, disposed of things as she went along. And that's the benefit of doing it a little at a time, is you can manage it a little more easily. You don't have to go get the dumpster necessarily. But yeah, I mean, it was the whole house. So that's why it's so inspiring. And she's also one of the biggest cheerleaders for everyone else. So she's in there chiming in on everybody else's issues and telling them how she did it. And it's been very helpful to everyone.
Oh, that's great. Now, we got a big holiday, Christmas coming up here, and this time of year it seems like there's parties and lots of stress. And do you have any good holiday organizing tips or some things, maybe even traditional things that maybe you've done in the past that kind of help you get through the holiday season?
Oh, sure. First of all, you mentioned the parties. So one of the stressors during the holiday season is you're going to all these parties and, oh my gosh, what do I bring? You're supposed to bring something. And it's a good idea if you choose whatever that is at the beginning of the season and buy a lot of it. So if it's a bottle of wine, buy a case and say, okay, that's the decision. The decision's already made. If it's some kind of Christmas candy that your family loves to make a giant batch of it, put it in the freezer so you'll always have something to take with you. Another thing that's a stressor during the holidays is those extra gifts. So the same thing applies. If there's some kind of little gift, like I always like to get those little wine charms, that you put on the glasses.
Yeah, like on the base, like whose glass is it, right?
Yeah, just some kind of gift like that. So if you forget somebody, like the mail carrier or your hairdresser or something, you've got a few of those to spare. So get those extra gifts ready for those little gift emergencies.
Yes. How about just the whole time thing of people who like procrastinate to the last minute? I mean, some people, they enjoy going out on the last day to buy gifts, but any kind of gift planning checklist kind of thing that you could come up with to help people with that whole process of buying gifts?
Yeah, definitely. This is kind of nerdy of me, but that's kind of how I am. I've always done it with a spreadsheet. So I just have a spreadsheet. I've got a list of everybody I need to give to. I've got a list of gift ideas next to that, and then check boxes for, have I bought it? Have I wrapped it? Is it hiding somewhere? Do I need to write down where I hid it so I won't forget? Because if you're buying things in advance, sometimes that happens. And then if you need to mail it, there's different kinds of stages with the gift giving that you have to make sure you've done all of them. So spreadsheet's really great, and then you can add a new worksheet at the bottom for each year and kind of copy each one over, and you pretty much are going to give to the same people anyway, right?
Yeah, plus you remember what you gave them.
Exactly. Another thing about gift giving, though, is if you can have a conversation with your family to simplify the gift giving. There's lots of ways to do that, because as families grow and children are born, it gets very overwhelming to try to buy for everyone. So one of the things we've done in my family is draw names. So we have a policy where you draw one name for an adult in the family, and then everybody just buys for all the kids. So that's always kind of nice. But another thing other families have done is just get together and all the kids buy something really great for the parents. So one person I know, they had like 6 kids in the family, and they bought a dining table and chairs for their parents. And that was much more satisfying to them than having little trinkets that they just gave each other.
Well, how about if you know somebody who's disorganized and you'd like to give them a quiet hint on they need to get organized? What would be a good gift to give someone who's disorganized that could maybe help them get organized? Have you thought of anything like that?
Do you remember that movie Bull Durham with Susan Sarandon? And I guess he gave her a dustbuster, and that was a really bad idea.
Yeah, you got to be very subtle about what you give, right? You don't want to, make the point too much. But what would be that? What would be something someone could receive that could maybe help them on the road to a little bit better organization?
Well, I suppose a gift certificate to an organizing product store would always be a
book,
strong or an office supply store.
Yeah.
Another thing would be if they have actually actively said they would really like to get organized, and they've expressed interest in that. People do buy gift memberships to our program, so that works.
Absolutely.
But you're right, though. I mean, it is a little dicey. Like, I wouldn't want someone to give them a copy of my book, for example. I don't know. That'd be a message.
Yeah. Well, it's just one of those things. When you're working with someone who's new to try to get organized, and it seems oftentimes people are just kind of overwhelmed by the scope, maybe like with the hoarder person, there's so much there. How do you help people take the first 1 or 2 steps? What are do you have any strategies for that? Like how do you just get started, You know
what? That's like the top question that we get from people is, where do I start? It is overwhelming. We tell them to start in an area that's bothering them the most. And the reason is it's going to give them the most return on the investment of time, and it's going to energize them and give them momentum to continue. So for a lot of people, that's going to be the common areas that they use frequently: the kitchen, the utility room, the home office. Those are going to give you the biggest impact. And the reason I say that is sometimes people are tempted to start with that junk room upstairs. That room where they've thrown everything in there and shut the door and they've ignored it for a long time, and they think, well, I'll start there. Well, they're not going to be running into that room every day and, reaping the benefits of having cleaned it up. It's probably one of the later projects that you should do. So you want to get the most used areas done first.
Right. Well, that's great advice, because then they'll get the most bang for their buck too, as far as they're going to see the fruits of their labor every day if they're in a space that's something that they use on a regular basis. Well, what kind of plans do you have maybe for the coming year or the future, or any new trends you see? We like to ask that question of a lot of our guests, just so we can kind of project out a little bit. What would you like to be doing a year from now, or maybe new products or new ideas that you have?
Oh, thanks for asking. Well, I wrote a book this year called The Home Office Handbook.
Oh, okay.
And I am having a lot of fun with that. So I'm going to be doing some webinars and things like that in the next year or so to help people that work from their homes. There's a lot of us out there, including me. So that's a big topic I'd like to tackle. You mentioned trends. I'd love to talk about that. One of the things I see as a trend is that so much of our information now is digital and not so much in paper anymore. So where I used to see a lot of clients that would have a problem with paper, like magazines, for example, a lot of my female clients particularly would collect piles and piles of magazines for ideas. Now what's happening is they have a Pinterest account and they are saving all those ideas that way, and those new tools are kind of getting disorganized and getting cluttered, and I see that probably organizers are going to be helping people more sorting their digital information than their paper, which paper used to be the number one problem for people. So it's interesting how that's changed.
Well, on a personal basis, do you use a paper planner or do you use electronic? I mean, how do you keep your particular day organized? Do you do it the day before? How do you lay out your day?
Yeah, well, I use Outlook, Microsoft Outlook. And I do organize my day the night before. I look at what's coming up for the next time, and I have a list of my top 3 things I need to get done for the day. But also I do weekly planning, and I think that's super important. We teach people a concept called Sunday planning, and it's usually best for people who have families, because Sunday is a slower day for most people, and they can sit down and do their menu planning. They can look at the week ahead, who needs to be carpooled where, what's going on, do we need a babysitter, all that kind of stuff can be planned. And the author Brian Tracy, you might have heard of his books, he said every minute you spend in planning saves you 10. So that makes it all worth it to me.
Wow. Well, listen, we are running out of time. I mean, I would love to go down the whole thing on the home office thing. Maybe we can get you back on another show, because there's a whole bit we could talk about your new book. We could talk about home office organization. I think we, just barely touched it all here. So hopefully we can do that in a future episode. But for now, for people who want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Just go to clutterdiet.com, and we have a Contact Us page with all the options listed there.
Okay, great. So it's Lorie Marrero from ClutterDiet.com. Thank you, Lorie, so much for just being with us today, and we hope to talk to you again on a future program. Lorie Marrero, theclutterdiet.com, today on Keeping You Organized.